"Don't make a scene at my office party," Elena said, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. She'd been saying that a lot lately. Don't make a scene here, don't embarrass me there. Like I was some kind of wild animal she had to keep on a leash. My name's Nick Harrow, and I'm 40 years old. I fix things for a living. Plumbing, electrical work, whatever needs doing around this sleepy New England town. Elena always introduced me as just a handyman, like it was something to apologize for. But here's the thing about fixing things. You learn to spot what's broken before anyone else does. "Relax, honey," I said, not looking up from my coffee. "I'll behave myself." She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that felt more like obligation than affection. Her perfume was different, something expensive and floral that definitely wasn't the vanilla scent I'd bought her for Christmas. The front door clicked shut, and I heard her car pull out of our driveway on Maple Lane. I waited exactly 5 minutes before walking to the window. Mrs. Greaves was watering her garden next door, and she caught my eye with that knowing look old ladies perfect over decades of watching their neighbors' lives unfold. "Working late again, is she?" Mrs. Greaves called over the fence. "So she says." "Funny thing about working late," she continued, deadheading some roses. "My Harold used to work late, too. Of course, his office didn't have a bar attached to it." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "Oh, nothing much. Just noticed Elena's been carpooling with that flashy fellow in the BMW. The one with the slicked-back hair. Seems friendly enough." Mrs. Greaves had lived on Maple Lane for 30 years. She knew every car, every routine, every deviation from normal. If she was mentioning Elena's carpool friend, it wasn't casual conversation. That night, I lay in bed pretending to sleep when Elena came home at midnight. She moved carefully through the house, trying not to wake me. I heard the shower running for 20 minutes, longer than usual. When she finally slipped into bed, she smelled like that expensive perfume again, mixed with something else, something masculine. The next morning, Elena left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. It wasn't locked. She'd always been careless about that, trusting me completely. Maybe too completely. I shouldn't have looked. But Mrs. Greaves's words kept echoing in my head. And sometimes you have to know the truth, even when it's going to hurt. The text messages told the whole story. Greg Monroe, head of sales at Elena's company. Messages going back 3 months. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was incredible. Your husband doesn't deserve you." And then the most recent exchange from just 2 hours ago. "Greg, Maplefest is next weekend. We could make it official." "Elena, not yet. Need to handle Nick first. He's not as stupid as he looks." "Greg, then let's give him a reason to leave." I forwarded the entire conversation to my email, then deleted the sent message from Elena's phone. My hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear for the first time in months. All those late nights, all those new clothes, all those times she'd made me feel like I wasn't good enough. It all made sense now. Elena came downstairs in her work clothes, looking fresh and innocent. "Morning, honey. I might be late again tonight. Big presentation tomorrow?" "Of course," I said, smiling. "Don't work too hard." She kissed my forehead and left. I watched through the window as a silver BMW pulled up at the end of our street. Elena walked over and got in. The driver was exactly what Mrs. Greaves had described. Slicked back hair, expensive suit, the kind of guy who thought the world owed him everything. I poured another cup of coffee and opened my laptop. Time to learn everything I could about Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe was exactly what I'd expected. 34 years old, divorced, living in one of those overpriced downtown condos with floor-to-ceiling windows and a BMW in the garage. His social media was full of gym selfies, expensive dinners, and photos from company events where he always seemed to have his arm around someone's wife. I called my best friend Mick around noon. He runs the garage on Main Street, and he knows everyone in town. "Nick, what's up, buddy? Want to grab a beer at Jackie's tonight? I need to get out of the house." "Everything okay? You sound weird." "Just need a drink and some friendly conversation." Jackie's bar sat on the corner of Main and Elm, the kind of place where half the customers were office workers unwinding after work, and the other half were guys like me who worked with their hands. Jackie herself was a 60-year-old former nurse who'd bought the place after her divorce and turned it into the unofficial information center of our little town. Mick was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and chatting with Jackie about the Red Sox. He was a big guy with grease permanently embedded under his fingernails and a laugh that could fill a room. "There he is," Mick said, slapping my back. "You look like hell, man." "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." Jackie poured me a whiskey without asking. She had that bartender's intuition about what people needed. "How's Elena?" she asked casually. Haven't seen her around lately. Working a lot. You know how it is. Oh, I know exactly how it is, Jackie said, wiping down a glass. Especially with those office parties. Some of those corporate types think they're in college again. Mick raised an eyebrow. What kind of office parties? The kind where married people forget they're married, Jackie said. That sales guy from Elena's company was in here last week, bragging about his conquest. Real piece of work, that one. My grip tightened on my whiskey glass. Greg Monroe? That's the one. Bought drinks for everyone, talking about how he was upgrading his situation. Made me sick, honestly. I finished my drink in one swallow. Another round, Jackie. We stayed until closing time, and by the end of the night, I had a complete picture of Greg Monroe's habits. He worked out at the downtown gym every morning at 6. He ate lunch at the same upscale sandwich shop every day. He parked in the same spot in his building's garage. And according to Jackie, he was planning to bring Elena to next weekend's Maple Fest as his official girlfriend. You okay, Nick? Mick asked as we walked to our cars. You've been quiet all night. Just thinking. About Elena? I looked at my oldest friend, this guy who'd been loyal to me since high school, who'd never judged me for marrying above my station or for being satisfied with a simple life. He deserved to know the truth. She's cheating on me, Mick, with that piece of garbage, Greg. Mick stopped walking. Are you sure? I showed him the text messages on my phone. He read them twice, his face getting redder with each line. He muttered, What are you going to do? I'm going to make him regret it. Nick, be careful. Guys like that have lawyers and connections. Don't worry, I said, getting into my truck. I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I am going to do something memorable. The next morning, I drove to Greg's condo building. The parking garage was accessible if you knew which button to press on the call box, and after 3 tries, I found an apartment number that buzzed me in without asking questions. Greg's silver BMW was parked in spot 23B, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I'd brought a small toolkit and a bag of supplies for my workshop. Nothing dangerous, nothing that would cause permanent damage. Just a little surprise that would make his day more interesting. I popped the hood and located the car alarm system. It took me about 10 minutes to rewire it, so that once triggered, it wouldn't stop until the battery died. Then I opened a small container of fish sauce, the kind used in Thai cooking, and poured it into the car's ventilation system. The smell would take weeks to fade. For the finishing touch, I scattered biodegradable glitter throughout the interior. It would stick to everything Greg touched for days. I was back in my truck and driving away when my phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I texted back, Have fun with the presentation. At 3 a.m, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Is this Nick Harrow? The voice was panicked, angry. Who's asking? This is Greg Monroe, your wife's colleague. Someone vandalized my car and I think you. Sorry, Greg. I was asleep. Maybe you should call the police if someone damaged your property. Listen, you piece of... I hung up and turned off my phone. Through my bedroom window, I could see Mrs. Greaves's light was on. She was probably wondering about all the noise from downtown. Car alarms had a way of carrying in the still night air. Elena came home an hour later, moving even more quietly than usual. She slipped into bed without showering, and I could smell the fish sauce in her hair. The next morning, Elena was unusually tense. She checked her phone constantly during breakfast and kept glancing at me like she was waiting for something. Everything okay at work? I asked innocently. Fine, just some drama with one of the sales guys. His car got vandalized or something. That's terrible. Did they catch who did it? No, and he's being ridiculous about it, acting like it's some kind of conspiracy. I nodded sympathetically. Some people just make enemies, I guess. Elena's phone buzzed and she read the message quickly. Her face went pale. I have to go, she said, grabbing her purse. Big meeting this morning. After she left, I drove to the coffee shop across from Elena's office building. Through the large windows, I could see the lobby and part of the elevator bank. At 9:30, Greg Monroe walked in, and even from a distance, I could tell he was having a bad day. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit looked like he'd slept in it, and he was scratching constantly at his arms and neck. The glitter was doing its job. I ordered another coffee and settled in to watch the show. Around noon, Elena came out for lunch with her friend Dana, a blonde woman in her 30s who posted every detail of her life on social media. They sat at a table near the window, and I could read their lips well enough to know they were talking about Greg. Dana kept laughing and covering her mouth with her hand. Elena looked mortified. That evening, I was in my workshop when Mick stopped by. Heard there was some excitement downtown last night, he said, grinning. Really? What kind of excitement? Car alarm went off for 3 hours straight. Woke up half the neighborhood. And apparently some hotshot sales guy showed up to work smelling like a fish market and covered in glitter. Sounds like karma to me. Sounds like you to me, Mick said. What's next? Elena's office party is tomorrow night. She specifically told me not to make a scene? And? Well, I'd hate to disappoint her expectations. The office party was held at the Marriott downtown, in one of those generic conference rooms with beige carpet and fluorescent lighting. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit, the one Elena had bought me for her company Christmas party 2 years ago. Elena's face went white when she saw me walk in. She was standing near the bar with Greg, who looked much better than he had that morning, but still seemed on edge. "Nick," she said, forcing a smile, "I didn't think you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I said, kissing her cheek. "You look beautiful, honey." Greg extended his hand with obvious reluctance. "You must be Elena's husband. I'm Greg Monroe, head of sales." "Nick Harrow. I fix things." His handshake was firm, aggressive, the kind of power play guys like him learned in business school. I squeezed back just hard enough to let him know I wasn't intimidated. "Elena's told me so much about you," Greg said. "Funny, she's never mentioned you at all." The conversation died there, and Elena quickly steered me toward the appetizer table. "Be nice," she whispered. "These are my colleagues." "I'm always nice," I said. "Ask anyone." For the next hour, I played the role of the supportive husband perfectly. I made small talk with Elena's coworkers, complimented the hors d'oeuvres, and laughed at all the right jokes. Elena began to relax, thinking she'd dodged a bullet. That's when Dana approached me. "You're much more charming than Elena said," she told me, clearly having had a few drinks. "What did she say?" "Oh, you know, that you were kind of simple, but I can see why she married you. You're actually quite attractive." Dana was flirting with me, probably on Elena's instructions. Keep Nick distracted while Elena and Greg made their plans for Maple Fest. "That's very kind," I said. "Can I get you another drink?" "That would be lovely." I walked to the bar, where Greg was ordering a whiskey. He'd had several already, judging by his flushed face and loose posture. "Having a good time?" I asked. "Best party ever." He slurred slightly. "Your wife knows how to throw a celebration. She's good at a lot of things." "Oh, I know exactly what she's good at." The comment was meant to provoke me, to make me lose my temper and cause the scene Elena was so worried about. Instead, I smiled and ordered 2 drinks from the bartender. "Red wine for the lady," I said, picking up Dana's glass, "and whiskey for the gentleman who's about to learn an important lesson." As I walked past Greg, I stumbled slightly, the kind of clumsy accident that happens at office parties. The red wine splashed across his white shirt and expensive tie, staining them permanently. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry," I said loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "Here, let me help you clean that up." I grabbed a handful of napkins and began dabbing at Greg's shirt, pressing hard enough to spread the stain further. In the process, I noticed something interesting, a lipstick mark on his collar that definitely wasn't Elena's shade. "Don't worry about it," Greg said through gritted teeth, trying to pull away. "No, I insist. Elena would kill me if I didn't help." I dabbed harder, and the lipstick smear became visible to everyone nearby. "Oh, looks like you've got something else on your collar, too." A few people began to snicker. Greg's face went from red to purple. I said, "Don't worry about it," he snapped, pushing my hand away. "Just trying to help," I said innocently. "Elena always says I should be more supportive of her work friends." Elena appeared at my elbow, looking panicked. "Nick, maybe we should go." "But the party's just getting started," I said. "Besides, Greg and I were just getting acquainted." I looked directly at Greg, letting him see that I knew exactly who he was and what he'd been doing. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me. Instead, he turned and walked toward the men's room, leaving a trail of whispered conversations in his wake. "We're leaving," Elena said firmly. "Now." "Whatever you say, honey. After all, I wouldn't want to make a scene." The ride home was silent, except for the sound of Elena's fingers tapping nervously on her purse. I could feel her anger radiating across the car, but I wasn't ready for the confrontation yet. I needed her to make the first move. "What the hell was that?" She finally exploded as we pulled into our driveway. "What was what? I spilled some wine. Accidents happen." "That wasn't an accident, and we both know it." I turned off the engine and looked at her calmly. "Are you accusing me of something, Elena?" "I'm saying you embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. Greg is an important client contact, and you humiliated him." Greg seemed to be handling his humiliation just fine. That lipstick stain on his collar was very colorful. Elena's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." Of course you don't. I got out of the car and walked toward the house, leaving her sitting there. Inside, I poured myself a whiskey and sat down at my computer. Elena followed a few minutes later, her heels clicking angrily on the hardwood floor. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm listening. I want you to apologize to Greg tomorrow. Call him and tell him you're sorry for ruining his shirt." "Why would I do that?" "Because he's my colleague, and your behavior reflects on me." I took a sip of whiskey and studied my wife's face. She was beautiful, even when she was angry, but there was something cold in her eyes that I'd never noticed before, or maybe I'd just chosen not to see it. "Elena, do you love me?" The question caught her off guard. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. Do you love me?" "Of course I love you. We're married." "That's not what I asked." She sat down across from me, and for a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Instead, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Nick, you're a good man, but sometimes I feel like we want different things." "What do you want?" "I want to feel alive. I want excitement, adventure, someone who challenges me. Someone like Greg Monroe." The words hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Elena's hand went still on mine. "I don't know what you think you know." "I know everything, Elena. The late nights, the new perfume, the text messages. I know about the hotel rooms and the plans for Maplefest. I know you've been sleeping with Greg for 3 months." She pulled her hand away and stood up, her face cycling through denial, anger, and finally resignation. "How long have you known? Long enough? Are you going to divorce me?" "I haven't decided yet. That depends on what happens next." Elena walked to the window and stared out at the dark street. "What do you want from me, Nick?" "I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything you think you deserve." "What does that mean?" "It means Greg Monroe is about to learn that some games have consequences." The next morning, I woke up to find Elena already gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Staying at Dana's tonight. Need time to think." I crumpled up the note and threw it away. Then I called Mick. "She's gone," I told him. "For good?" "Probably. But she's not taking Greg with her." "What's the plan?" "Meet me at your garage in an hour, and bring your tow truck." Mick's garage was on the outskirts of town, surrounded by junked cars and spare parts. It was the kind of place where you could work on a project without anyone asking questions. "You sure about this?" Mick asked as we loaded equipment into his truck. "Greg Monroe thinks he can take whatever he wants without consequences. It's time someone taught him otherwise." We drove to Greg's office building and parked across the street. At exactly noon, Greg emerged and walked to his BMW. He'd had it detailed since my last visit, but I could tell he was still finding glitter in unexpected places. Greg drove to his usual lunch spot, a trendy bistro downtown. While he was inside ordering his overpriced sandwich, I got to work. It took me less than 5 minutes to attach a small GPS tracker to his car's undercarriage and another 2 minutes to place a tiny wireless camera in his side mirror. Both devices were the kind you could buy online for home security, completely legal and virtually undetectable. Phase 1 complete, I told Mick as we drove away. That afternoon, I monitored Greg's movements from my workshop. He went back to the office, then to the gym, then to a liquor store where he bought an expensive bottle of champagne. Finally, at 7:30, he drove to the Riverside Motel on the edge of town. The motel was the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen. Greg parked in front of room 237 and knocked on the door. It opened, and Elena stepped out, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. I watched through the camera as they kissed, then disappeared into the room. "Got you," I whispered. I called Jackie's bar and asked to speak to Dana, who I knew would be there for Friday night happy hour. "Dana? This is Nick Harrow, Elena's husband." "Oh, hi, Nick. Elena's not here." "I know where Elena is. I also know where she's been for the past 3 months. Oh, but that's not why I'm calling." "I don't understand." "Meet me at the Riverside Motel in 1 hour. Room 237. Bring your camera phone." "Nick, I don't think..." "Dana, you have 2 choices. You can help me end this cleanly, or you can watch your best friend's life explode in the messiest way possible. Your call." There was a long pause. 1 hour, she said finally. At 8:30, I sat in my truck outside the Riverside Motel, watching room 237. The champagne bottle was empty on the windowsill, and the curtains were drawn. Greg's BMW sat in the parking lot like evidence at a crime scene. Dana pulled up in her Honda Civic, looking nervous and confused. I got out to meet her. "Nick, what are we doing here?" "We're going to give Elena and Greg exactly what they want, a chance to make their relationship public." I don't understand. You will. I knocked on the door of room 237. After a moment, Elena's voice called out, "Who is it?" "Room service," I said in a fake accent. The door opened, and Elena appeared in a hotel bathrobe, her hair disheveled. When she saw me, her face went white. "Nick, what are you—" Then she saw Dana behind me. "Dana, what's going on?" "Surprise," I said, pushing past her into the room. Greg was sitting on the bed in his underwear, looking like he'd seen a ghost. The room smelled like cheap cologne and expensive champagne. "What the hell are you doing here?" Greg demanded, reaching for his pants. "I'm here to help you celebrate," I said. "Dana, start recording." "Nick, don't do this," Elena pleaded. "Do what? You wanted to make your relationship public at Maplefest, right? I'm just moving up the timeline." I pulled out my phone and showed them the GPS tracker data, the photographs from the parking garage, the text messages I'd intercepted. "I've been watching you for weeks," I said calmly. "I know about every hotel room, every lie, every plan you've made behind my back." Greg stood up, trying to look intimidating despite being in his underwear. "You're trespassing. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear about how you've been harassing my wife." "Oh, wait. That's not the story you've been telling people, is it?" I turned to Dana, who was still holding her phone uncertainly. "Dana, did you know that Greg told everyone at Jackie's bar that Elena was just a conquest, that he was slumming it with a married woman?" Dana's eyes widened. "Is that true?" "Of course it's not true," Elena said quickly. "Actually it is," I said, playing an audio recording from my phone. Greg's voice filled the room, bragging to his drinking buddies about his affair with some desperate housewife. Elena's face crumpled as she listened to the man she'd thrown away her marriage for describing her like a trophy he'd won. "You recorded me?" Greg said, his voice cracking. "I recorded everything, every conversation, every meeting, every plan to frame me as an abusive husband so Elena could get a better divorce settlement." The room went dead silent. Even Dana lowered her phone. "That's right," I continued. "I know about that too. The fake bruises Elena was planning to show her lawyer. The witnesses you were going to bribe. The story about how I threatened you." Greg was backing toward the bathroom, looking for an escape route. "You're crazy. Elena, tell him he's crazy." But Elena wasn't looking at Greg anymore. She was staring at me with something that might have been respect. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "About the affair? 3 weeks. About the frame-up? Since yesterday when you left your laptop open and I saw the emails." I walked to the window and opened the curtains. In the parking lot below, I could see Mrs. Greaves sitting in her car, along with Jackie from the bar and at least a dozen other people from town. "What's happening?" Elena asked. "I invited some friends to witness your big announcement. After all, you've been planning to go public for months." Greg made a run for the door, but I stepped in front of him. He was bigger than me, but he was also drunk and panicked. "Get out of my way," he snarled. "Or what? You'll hit me in front of all these witnesses?" Greg swung wildly, but I ducked and grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back. He yelped and stumbled, falling face first onto the motel carpet. "That's assault," he screamed. "That's self-defense," I corrected. "Dana got it all on video, didn't you, Dana?" Dana nodded, still recording. I helped Greg to his feet, not gently. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get dressed, walk outside, and apologize to my wife in front of everyone for taking advantage of her. Then you're going to leave town and never contact her again." "Like hell I am." I pulled out my phone and showed him a video I'd taken earlier that day, Greg's car in the office parking lot with him clearly visible inside, snorting cocaine off his dashboard. "Your choice, Greg. Public apology and a quiet exit, or I send this to your boss, your ex-wife, and the police." Greg's face went gray. "You bastard." I learned from the best. 5 minutes later, Greg Monroe stood in the motel parking lot, fully dressed but thoroughly humiliated, and apologized to Elena for taking advantage of her vulnerable emotional state. His voice shook as he promised never to contact her again. The crowd from town watched in fascination as the hotshot sales guy who'd been bragging about his conquest got taken down by the simple handyman. After Greg drove away, probably forever, I turned to Elena. "Your turn," I said. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell everyone the truth, about the affair, about the lies, about the plan to destroy my reputation." Elena looked at the faces surrounding us. Neighbors, friends, people we'd known for years. Then she looked at me. "I'm sorry, Nick. I'm sorry for all of it." "Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it?" "Both." I nodded. "That's probably the most honest thing you've said in months." The crowd began to disperse, already spreading the story that would be talked about in Jackie's bar for years to come. Dana approached me hesitantly. Nick, I want you to know I didn't know about the frame-up plan. I know. That's why you're not in the video I'm sending to Elena's boss on Monday morning. Elena's head snapped up. You're sending this to Mr. Wilkes? Elena, you and Greg have been conducting your affair on company time, in company cars, probably in the office after hours. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I'll be fired. Probably, but you're a smart woman. You'll find another job, in another town, with another company that doesn't know about your extracurricular activities. Elena stared at me for a long moment. When did you become so cruel? I'm not cruel, Elena. I'm just not stupid. There's a difference. She got into Dana's car without another word. As they drove away, Mrs. Greaves walked over to me. That was quite a show, Nick. Just giving the people what they wanted to see. And what did you want? I looked at the motel, at Greg's tire tracks in the gravel, at the empty champagne bottle in the window of room 237. I wanted them to understand that actions have consequences. I wanted them to know that taking advantage of people has a price. And now they know. Now they know. Mrs. Greaves patted my arm. Come by tomorrow. I'll make you dinner. You shouldn't be alone right now. Thanks, but I won't be alone. I've got friends. As if on cue, Mick pulled up in his truck, grinning from ear to ear. Holy shit, Nick. That was better than pay-per-view. Language, Mick. Mrs. Greaves is standing right here. Sorry, Mrs. G, but damn, that was beautiful. I climbed into Mick's truck, and we drove toward Jackie's bar, where I knew the story would already be growing in the telling. By tomorrow, it would be legend. By next week, it would be mythology. Greg Monroe had left town that night and never came back. Elena moved to Boston and found a job with a marketing firm that didn't ask too many questions about her references. Dana stopped posting about other people's business on social media and started minding her own. And me? I kept fixing things because that's what I do. But now everyone in town knew that I could break things too, when breaking them was what the situation required. 6 months later, I was replacing a water heater for a young couple who just moved to Maple Lane. The husband was worried about the cost, apologizing for not being able to afford the premium service. Don't worry about it, I told him. I believe in treating people fairly, as long as you do the same. He looked confused by the comment, but his wife smiled. She'd heard the story, like everyone else in town. We will, she promised. Then we'll get along just fine. I finished the job, packed up my tools, and drove home to my empty house on Maple Lane. It was quiet, but it was honest. And after everything that had happened, honest was exactly what I needed. Some people might call what I did to Elena and Greg revenge. I prefer to think of it as education. They learned that actions have consequences, that lies have expiration dates, and that underestimating people can be a very expensive mistake. Elena had said, "Don't make a scene." But she'd forgotten that some scenes write themselves, and some stories demand to be told. All I did was make sure this one had the ending it deserved.